Hey everybody, I don't know if you can see me, hopefully you can, but I want to talk about something. I was scanning through the uh, the Comcast guide, cable guide last night. You know, just seeing what was on, and I stopped at Disney XD. Didn't switch on Disney XD, or didn't click on Disney XD, I should say. But as you probably know, for those of you who watch it, and I do admit I will try to watch it sometimes if something's good on. Disney XD, when it comes to animation, especially animation we know, growing up in the 90s and all that, they have Fantastic Four, Spider-Man in the 90s, X-Men in the 90s, Silver Surfer, Hulk, I think at times, Iron Man, I believe, at times. As well as probably the most popular Disney show in history, Gargoyle. Now, when I was scanning through this, when I was scanning through them, and I was looking at what title of the episodes there were, like what episode titles, what episodes were being shown. The Fantastic Four one, which aired last night, was called When Worlds Collide, or something like that. And it basically, in its description, it had this villain known as Cycle Man capture and take control of Sue Storm, and turn her into Malice. Now, in case you don't know who Malice is, if you don't follow comic books, I'll give you sort of an idea the best I can. Malice is basically the evil alter ego of Sue Storm. Anytime Sue Storm is mind controlled by somebody, into becoming an evil person and working with them, she turns into Malice. That's basically what it is. Anyway, I looked at this and I said to myself, it's kind of crazy, it's kind of weird that this kind of an episode was being shown, because I was asking myself, for how long has this been going on? For how long in live action, in animation, television show-wise and all that, action adventure, hero versus villain, how long has this been going on? How long has a storyline in live action and animation, hero versus villain, good guy versus bad guy, how long has it been going on to where one of the good guys, mostly the female, one of the protagonists, one of the main protagonists, namely one of the female ones, how long has it been going on where a female protagonist, whether it's one of, like I said, it being one of the main ones, or maybe even one of the co-main ones, how long has it been going on to where if for one episode or a two-parter or maybe a five-parter that the female protagonist gets taken control of and turned into an evil version of herself? I just want to know how long this has been going on. I mean, I can understand, honestly, I can understand that it's happened to the men heroes as well, to the male protagonists. It's happened many times with them. I understand it. I know that. I mean, I've seen it. We've all seen it. But I want to know how long has it been going on. I mean, like I said, the male protagonist I can understand. But whose idea was it to come up with a female protagonist? And that's turning evil, if just for one episode, for a two-part miniseries, or maybe up to a five-part miniseries, whose idea was it? That's what I want. Because to me, it just does not make any sense sometimes that if you're going to turn a female protagonist evil, then you should follow the example of some animation and live action shows of the past. Now, what I mean is some of these are very rare in what they did. But there have been some animation and live action shows, heroes versus villains, protagonists versus antagonists, to where the female protagonist, one of the main female protagonists, if not the co-female protagonist, has turned evil, but she didn't stay that way for maybe 2 episodes or 5 episodes or anything like that. She stayed that way for a majority of the season. And up until like the second to last episode of the season, was only then would she turn back to good. Now, to me, that makes more sense because let's say the show that does this is a Saturday morning show. For the next 13 to maybe 26 weeks, or mainly nowadays 13 weeks, you're always going to be wondering out of maybe 11 of those 13 weeks, are they ever going to get this girl back to normal? Now, let's say the series finale is a 4-parter. Okay. You'll be wondering out of the 9 to 13 episodes, will they ever get her back to normal? So, again, but like I said, again, that makes it more suspenseful. Now, if the series, the Saturday morning series ran for 26 episodes, then you'd be looking at maybe 22 out of the 26 episodes, or maybe even more than that, like maybe 25 out of the 26 or 24 out of the 26 episodes, wondering if they're ever going to turn the female protagonist good again. Now, to me, it made more sense if they went in that direction, and I'll give you a good example. I remember one time I was in this program where we were kind of getting that idea of how to live on our own and have our own jobs and all that, sort of like a dormitory, college dormitory. Kind of prepares for after high school. And I remember USA had the Street Fighter cartoon series. And I remember right at the end of the first episode, I think, of the season, Bison had somehow turned, I guess through his psycho power, turned Cammy against the Street Fighter team. And she joined him for a majority of this, and from what I read online, she joined him for a majority of the season, up until like the second or last, up until maybe the third to second to last episode of the season. Then she turned back to normal. Now, to me, that makes sense because, again, it's more about will you ever find out if they ever do it? When are they going to do it? When are they going to try for it? It makes it more intriguing, it makes it more suspenseful, instead of just doing it for 1 episode or for 2 parts or even a 5-part. Now, a 5-part miniseries, I will admit, maybe a 4 to 5-part miniseries, I will admit makes it intriguing at times, because for half of that miniseries, you have the female protagonist as the main antagonist. I'll give you an example. X-Men, Dark Phoenix Saga is a good example of this. For a majority of that sequel to the Phoenix Saga, Jean Grey was the antagonist of the X-Men. She was their enemy. Until the end. That's what she was. Now, the thing is, the one thing that made it intriguing as well, that made this intriguing, was the fact that they always had scenes where she was trying to fight for control. Now, she did gain control for a little bit, which was good, but then she lost it again. And I think that's what needs to be made, that needs to be done in any animated or live action series that has an antagonist and a female antagonist, or even a male protagonist. I'll even say that, to go as far as to being a villain. Have them lose control, then go back to being you get the idea, right? You get the idea. Have them go back to being a protagonist, but then go back to being an antagonist, and then finally, in the last episode of where they're as an antagonist, have them go back to protagonist. But like I said, with the male heroes and all that, with the male protagonists, we've seen it many times, but the female ones make it, a little bit more intriguing, I mean, the male protagonists, when they tricked and mind controlled into being male antagonists, in other words, the villains, you know eventually they're going to break control, because they always seem people be portrayed as stronger. It's more like, back to normal. There you go, just like that. But the female ones, and I'm not trying to be sexist or anything, seem to be more vulnerable. And when this happens, it makes it more intriguing. But the thing is, to me, if it's only done for one episode, it's like, come on, that was a waste. Stretch it out. Stretch it out. That's what I would do. And like I said, there are many examples of this. Anime in Japan, you've seen some of that anime when it's brought over here. They've done that. They've done that. Which is pretty cool. They've turned them into the protagonists. I mean, not protagonists, but the antagonists, if not for one season, but for the entire series. That's right. And again, I think if you were to do, if there was a new live action or animated show coming out, or ever to be made, based on any kind of idea, whether it's a comic book, video game, or even an original idea, what you need to do is make the female protagonist, if you have an episode in the pipelines, whether it's the first, second, or third episode, or even in the middle, what you need to do is have them remain as an antagonist. If the episode calls for them to be mind controlled and turned into this evil alter ego, you need to have that episode to where you basically need to stretch it out, make it more intriguing. I mean, comic books do a good job at that sometimes too. Yes, there are comic books that sometimes just do it for one issue, maybe two. And again, when they do it for one issue, yeah, it's intriguing, but it's not as much. It's like, they're going to be fine. I'll give you an example. I'll give you another example here. Sonic the Hedgehog issue 29. This issue had Sally basically get herself roboticized. She basically wanted to have herself roboticized so she could destroy Robotnik's factory within. They even put a microchip, a mind, kind of a microchip behind her ear, which would disable the mind control. However, this microchip fell off her, and after she was roboticized, she was completely under Robotnik's control. In fact, she wasn't even known as Sally anymore. She was known as Bot 00 something. But here was the thing. You knew as soon as that happened that it was going to last forever. Now, I would have been, here's the thing. I would have liked it, as much as I hate to say this, and I may get some flack for it. I would have liked it if they would have stretched it out another issue or two. But they didn't. Because here's the plot device. As soon as you saw at the beginning of that issue that they had a de-roboticizer that they had recovered from one of Robotnik's ships, and as soon as you knew that as soon as you saw the fact that she had lost the microchip that would give her back her free will after robotization, well, you knew eventually it was only going to last for one issue. But again, if I was writing the book, I would have stretched it out. The same thing with television and animated and television, live action animated shows that follow the same suit. If you're going to have the female protagonist become evil, stretch it out. Don't, stretch it out for at least the season, if not the series. And I guarantee you, people would be tuning in every week. Either it was a syndicated show, or nowadays more so a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning show. People would be tuning in every week to see it. To see the show and find out, okay, is she going to be changed back now? Or are they going to say, they'd be wondering. They'd be asking the question. But that's not the only thing that bugs me. bugs me. And before I get on this next subject, comment and tell me what you think about what I had to say here. But you know, that's not the only thing that bugs me. You know what really gets me sometimes? and this is crazy. The transformations that take place in these episodes. It's weird. It is just weird. What I'm talking about is there are transformations that take place in episodes to both the female and the male protagonist, and sometimes the female and male antagonists. Basically the heroes and the villains. And it's mostly done in animation. Yes, some is done in live action and all that, but mostly in animation. But, you know, what really gets me is how some of these transformations are. Now, I can understand a transformation of turning someone to stone, into a stone statue, and they remain that way for at least maybe an episode, for that episode, or maybe two. In fact, if you go on the YT, there are many clips out there from anime shows, US American shows, European animation shows, like I say, US animation shows, anime shows, you know, to where the characters, sometimes the male, and for some reason mostly the female ones, are always transformed into statues, and sometimes they will remain this way for that episode, or at least for maybe another 2 episodes. For example, there's the ever popular anime Inuyasha, and I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but Inuyasha. And there's an episode, I can't think of it right now, but basically you have 2 of the main characters turned to crystal, or turned into glass. Now, I don't know if it's for that episode, if it's carried on for another episode or so, but what gets me is that they never have the characters kind of acknowledge what has happened to them. What happens is that the characters sometimes, the majority of the time, from what I've seen, are like, after they get reverted back, they're like, what happened? What's going on here? It's like they don't know. And you know what gets me? And you know what gets me, what irks me, is the fact that when you watch this, it makes you think that if they're even aware, because if they're not aware and they forget, you make them think, well, how can they not know they were transformed into a glass statue or a stone statue or whatever, or a wax statue? How can they not know that? How can they not remember that? And then it makes you think. It makes you think maybe their soul, if you will, or the spirit is kind of trapped, like between dimensions, like it wants to move to the afterlife, but it's still here. So basically that probably, thrown away, maybe that messes them up, maybe messes up their minds and makes them think after they get reverted back, well, what happened, you know? In fact, like I said, it's happened in a lot of things. And like I said, it happens in a lot of animation. Anime, Japan animation, American animation, it's happened. You know, because I can tell you this. I can tell you this. One animation, one thing that really sticks out to the people. Because there are times that they will acknowledge that the person knows they've been turned into this. They've been transformed into this. You know. I'll give you an example. And this is the one that's really got a lot of people irked at times because it's so out of place. For anybody that's a fan of the Revolutionary Girl Utena series, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen the movie. Now the movie apparently is a revamping of the origins. But here's what really irks you fans, and here's what, and for those that don't know about it, here's what really irks these fans and the fans that are watching this. Towards the end of the film, when Utena and Anthony, when Utena wants to take Anthony to the outside world, this car wash suddenly pops out of nowhere. And what happens is Utena tries to pull Anthe in there with her, but that doesn't happen. So instead, what happens is Utena gets dragged in. Her ring signet, her signet, her ring signet, her rose signet, basically, is left behind with Anthe. And what happens is she's dragged into this thing, and it just starts going to work. You see all these visuals and everything. You see her laying on this convertible, this little dome, dome encasing her, and then after it opens and you see nothing but pink, like, you know, she got melted down or something like that, I don't know. And then after it's all said and done, as you get towards the end of this transformation, you see a car. And you're wondering, what the heck does this have to do with anything? And then it hits you, Utena's been turned into a car. And you think to yourself, what sense does that make? And I guess according to the director, it basically makes sense by saying that her and Anthe had switched roles. See, Anthe, for most of the movie, was the princess. And Utena was the prince. Now they switched roles. Utena is now the princess, Anthe's the prince. But Utena is more like a Sleeping Beauty princess. In other words, during this transformation, she was put to sleep. And by doing so, being transformed into a car, she remained that way. Now, again, I guess towards the end, it does kind of acknowledge the fact, after she reverts back, along with Anthe, that she does kind of have an idea that she turned into a car. But again, this is the kind of transformation that kind of irks people. Like, they just don't understand why this happened. But it's also the kind of transformation that shows you that these people know exactly what's happened to them. There's no doubt about that. They know exactly what's happened to them. And again, it's just so weird at times. You know, because there are times, like I mentioned earlier, where the transformations, when they happen, people are like, man, what happened to me? You know, what's going on? It's like they don't remember. I mean, they'll be transformed into animals, and when they get reverted back, they're like, what happened? You know? It's like they don't know. It's like they can't remember. And as an animal, it's like, okay, the mind's being dormant and being dominated by the animal instincts. I'll give you another example. And this may sound a little weird. My Little Pony. Yeah, that's right, My Little Pony. Think of it this way. The pilot, if you will, the very first My Little Pony animation, which was, can't even think of the name right now, but it was the very first one. It was Escape from Something, or Rescue. It was basically, it had the title Rescue in it, and I have to look it up. I have the DVD box set. So it was Rescue from Something. But basically what it is the transformations that happened here was the ponies got turned into these dragons, into these evil dark dragons. And even though you knew these were the ponies, it's like they didn't know. It's like they couldn't remember. Now I don't know if they did show that or anything, but it's like they never acknowledged the fact that they either knew or didn't know that they were turned into dragons. Another good example would be G.I. Joe. Another good example would be G.I. Joe. There's an episode where one of the Joes gets turned into a whale. And according to where I read online, and if I remember correctly from watching it a long time ago, I mean, I know I could probably see it on the hub now, but from what I remember, he got turned into this whale, and in the episode, for some reason, the whale instincts, the animal instincts, or the mammal instincts of the whale started to take over, started to make his human traits, his human mind dormant. In other words, you know, he started to lose himself into becoming more whale than human. And the same could be said with anything else. I mean, Ninja Turtles, the original Ninja Turtles is a good example. I mean, they've had a couple of things where, like one episode they had April turn into the cat, into a cat from the episode The Catwoman from Channel 6. And even though she tried to fight the control that Shredder put on her, basically her mind for a time became dormant. You get what I'm saying? And then the newer one, Back to the Sewer. They had her get possessed by this evil yin-yang medallion or amulet, to where towards the end she got turned into this demon. And I don't know if she even recognized if knew she was or what. Nobody knew. Again, it's these kind of transformations. Again, it's these kind of transformations that make you wonder if they even knew it or they didn't know. You know what I'm saying? It's these kind of transformations, and it's weird. And it's weird. I'll give you a good example, though, that sometimes transformations to characters, female or male, could be good. Is when, just like I mentioned earlier with the whole protagonist into antagonist deal, is when they keep it going for the entire season. Okay? They keep it going for the entire season, or at least for that arc at least for that story arc or miniseries, or chapter of that season, if not the series. And that's basically when they turn somebody into something else, and they remain that way for the whole time of that arc, or for that whole season. Winx Club was a good example. Winx Club had this, I guess you could say, this protagonist witch, this good witch, get turned into a pumpkin, and the Winx Club fairies took care of her until the end, towards the end. You know what I'm saying? Where she got turned back to normal. Now I never watched the Winx Club, so I don't know if she even knew she was turned into a pumpkin or remembered. I don't know. Another good example would be Tristan in Yu-Gi-Oh! When his body got transferred to this monkey in the virtual world. You think, you know, obviously he does remember and everything, but you know, at least they kept it going. They made you wonder, would he ever be transformed back? Would this happen? Would that happen? You know, because no one really knew. No one really knew. You know, see, that's the thing. Nobody really knew. I know what I'm probably saying is not making any sense, but I'm just trying to point out the fact that, to me, there are certain things about, you know, when a female protagonist gets turned into a female antagonist, villain, if you will, and a transformation happening to a female as well, if not a male protagonist or something like that. That at times they don't take these, this protagonist to antagonist deal, especially with the female characters, and stretch it out. And the same with the transformations. You know, to me, it's like, I just don't understand why they don't just stretch out the fact that the character will stay as this object for the entire season, if not for the rest of the series. You know, I'll give you another example before I end this. Of Disney's Aladdin. There was an episode, I can't think of the name right now, where the Sultan and Jasmine got turned into these two jewels, and they were kept by this the villainess, I believe, of the episode, until they got changed back at the end. Now, if I was Disney and I wanted to really establish this woman as a villainess, I would have had this as a two-parter and stretched it out, at least. But they didn't do that. So, and you know, Aladdin also follows in suit a female protagonist to antagonist. When Jasmine was controlled, if you will, was given that flower by Arbus Mal and turned evil, even to the point that she overthrew Arbus Mal until the end. You know what I'm saying? Basically what I'm saying here is, it just kind of, irks me a little bit that they don't stretch these things out, these two subjects out when it comes to animation, live action, or anime. It just irks me a little bit, and I'm pretty sure it irks a lot of other people. Because to me, it would make things more intriguing. You would have people tuning in every day if it was a syndicated show. You'd have people tuning in every day, every weekend if it was a Saturday or Sunday morning show, because they'd be wanting to know, is this going to happen? Are they going to change this girl back, this girl or this guy back into a protagonist, into a hero? Is this person ever going to be reverted back or changed back from whatever they've been transformed into, whatever animate object or animal or whatever they've been turned into, back into their normal selves? Will that ever happen? See, that's the thing that really irks me. And if they would just work on that a little bit in the future, for future live action and animated shows or anime shows or whatever, I guarantee you people will like it. I mean, you have these classic animes like Pauline or Paulin, which there's a lot of transformations there. You got girls turning into trees. You got Pauline, the main character, turning herself into a unicorn-like cat, if not for that one episode. I mean, things like that. I mean, you got Princess Knight. You have, Hecate turning herself into all these things, and you wonder, can't they just, stretch it out for another episode where she remains that way or something? Nobody really knows. I mean, nobody, really knows that they would ever do that, if they could have done that. And to me, it would have made things more intriguing. So, hopefully what I said here made some sense. If not, I apologize. But tell me what you guys think. Comment down below, and I will talk to you all later. Peace out.